still think they're like, would you like this?
Thank you for joining us here today for a special naming recognition. I'm Dr. Jill Stearns, Superintendent President of Cuesta College, and what a joy it is to welcome you to the naming recognition ceremony for the Dr. Frank R. Martinez Building. Thank you for joining us for this historic milestone as we honor the legacy of service to students provided by Dr. Martinez over the course of his time at Cuesta College. I would like to recognize San Luis Obispo County Community College District Board of Trustees President, Mr. Pete Sizak, representing District 4. Board Vice President, Dr. Barbara George, representing District 2. Mr. Patrick Mullen, representing District 3. Our student trustee, Jordan Jansen. Joining us today are former trustees Dee Lacey and Charlotte Alexander. I would also like to welcome and acknowledge Superintendent President Emeritus Dr. Gil Stork. And the fourth Superintendent President of Cuesta College, Dr. Marie Rosenwasser. And Superintendent of the San Luis Coastal Unified School District, Dr. Eric Prater. A special thank you to the faculty, staff, administration, and students gathered to celebrate the legacy of Superintendent President Emeritus Martinez. In recognition of his exemplary career and relentless commitment to Cuesta College, the Board of Trustees acted to rename the San Luis Obispo campus instructional building in Dr. Frank Martinez's honor. Frank's imprint is evident in every facet of this great institution. He is a true pioneer of the college, sharing a wealth of history, passion, stewardship, and phenomenal stories of Cuesta College. It is now my pleasure to introduce Cuesta College Board of Trustees President Pete Sizak.
Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, thank you for being here. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, we really appreciate what you've done today. We'd also like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for the Chamber of Commerce weather that they gave us today to celebrate this event. Next, I'd like to recognize Dr. Martinez's family who are here to celebrate this occasion. I'd like to recognize his son, Dr. Frank Martinez, and his wife, Kathy. Larry, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Larry. And his wife, Kathy. And I'd also like to introduce Barbara Martinez, his daughter, and her husband, Steve. Dr. Martinez's son, Mark. Dr. Martinez's son, Jay. His grandson, Julian. Is Julian here? Yeah. Julian's in the back. And his niece, Teresa, and her friend, George. I'd also like to recognize Cuesta College's first classified employee, hired by Dr. Martinez, a lifelong friend, Elaine Coates. Thank you. On December 5th, 2018, the board acted to recognize the depth and breadth of the work that Dr. Frank Martinez and his unique contributions supporting student success by placing his name on the San Luis Obispo campus instructional building. Dr. Martinez joined Cuesta College in 1964 as vice president, assistant superintendent, and he became a superintendent and president of the college in 1977 and remained in that position until 1988 when he retired. His 25 years of service to the college and the community had immense impact on generations of faculty and reflected the best in education. Cuesta College has been honored to have his leadership for so many years and have future students know that his leadership and dedication help them in their educational process. I reached out to Dr. Stork to get some more background information on Dr. Martinez, but after about an hour and a half, I gave up trying to highlight some of the activities that he had done. And when I asked Frank what I should talk about, the good or the bad, he said, talk about the bad. So I'm not sure what he was referring to. Well, one of the highlights of Dr. Martinez's career, and I've talked to several people, and they all say the same thing, that his impact on the first year of campus was of classes here was tremendous. He not only wrote the curriculum and did the outlines, he hired the faculty. So he did this all by himself. Nobody helped him, except Elaine probably typing up all the work. Because we know Frank can't type. So I'd like to recognize that as one of the outstanding things that Frank has done. I didn't get the opportunity to work directly for Frank because he retired in 1988 and I came to the campus in 1991. And when he started his career here, I think I was in kindergarten. I'm not really sure. He'll talk to me about it later. Frank, in my opinion, is the original gentleman. If we want to look at a definition of what a gentleman is, then we should all look to Frank to find out what kind of person that is. He's an educator, he's a patriot, he's a friend, and I'm glad I've known him for the number of years that I have known him. I said a patriot. Army versus Marine Corps, is that what it is? Okay, I'll let you talk about that, Frank. Anyway, I think it's now time to hear from Dr. Martinez.
I really can't believe this. This was a dream. I'll wake up tonight and I'll say, did it really happen? And thank you for being here. And I was going to introduce my family, so that was taken care of. And introduced Elaine. Elaine was here for 40 years. She was our very first employee. And if it hadn't been for her, we wouldn't have done what we did, especially at the very beginning. And then somebody else I want to talk about, and that's Gil Stork. I really feel guilty in having this building named after me because Gil has done more for Cuesta College. He's been here 51 and a half years. How did you put up with him? And behind every good man, there's a better woman. Jan and Gil have done tremendous work and have contributed to the success of Cuesta College, and he deserves more credit than he's ever been given. So for every positive, there's a negative, and I'll give you the negative now. The negative is that his letters on the gym are bigger than mine. Where's that Terry Reese who ruined those letters? I was here for the beginning or the orientation of the introduction of the new educational building. And at the time, as they talked about it and what it was going to do, I thought, this is attributed to Gil Stork. So I said to Barbara George, who at that time was president of the board, you ought to name this building after Gil. And she says, that's a good idea. So she said, I'll talk to some people. So she did talk to people, and somehow Stork heard about it. And he said, if you're going to name anything, name the gym after me. And I think the reason was he could use bigger letters on the gym. You can't trust guys like Stork. But he's the reason why we have an outstanding school, because of his leadership for 50-some years. Even though when we first started, we hired him as a football coach, and from the time we hired him, the team never won a game again.
I love you, Frank.
Thank you for being here today, and I have notes because I forget things. Dr. Stearns, thank you for your introduction, and I want to thank the board for what they did in naming this building after me. And all I can say is that years from now, as you walk about here, somebody's going to say to you, as they approach the building, Martinez. Who in the heck was Martinez? And so I'm going to tell you who the heck he was. And it's an honor to be associated with that building because it represents the curriculum, education, learning, and this is why we were here. I got to look at my notes here because I want to sound intelligent. In 1964, July 1st, three gentlemen, that includes me, Dr. McGinnis and Dr. Eisenbeis, started to work here officially to open up a new school. Our name was Slocco. You know, you use Cuesta College, that's our second name. The first name was Slocco, San Luis Obispo County Community College. And so we met in the county superintendent's office on July the 1st, 1964, and Billy Watson, the county superintendent, gave us a long table in a little room at the end of the hallway. The table was dusty, had a waste paper basket and a cardboard box on it, and there were the three of us. And so Dr. Eisenbeis said, okay, we're here, we have a lot to do, this is what my plan is. He said, I have to work with the board because I have to orient the board as to what their duties are and their responsibilities. The board is really interested in having the college situated in their part of the county. They don't care about anything at this point. All they want is to have the college situated in either Paso Robles or Arroyo Grande or Atascadero. So I have to work with the board and orient them as to their responsibilities. The same is true with the county. The county is very supportive, and we get letters every day offering their site for the campus to be built. And he says it's going to take a lot of work to work with the board and the community, so that's going to be my responsibility. The cardboard box was on the table, and that was the college at that time. It was full of letters and applications, everybody wanting a job. And McGinnis was appointed as a business manager, and Eisenbeis said, go get some money because we have nothing here. We need a telephone, we need a typewriter, we need paper, pencils, dictaphone, you name it. Can you believe we just had a table to work with? And so he sent George McGinnis, the business manager, to the Board of Supervisors. And he had to talk to the district attorney because at that time, the district attorney was the business manager for the Board of Supervisors. And so George said to him, I'd like to borrow $5,000 because we have nothing to work with. And so we got the $5,000, and within a matter of a couple of days, we had a telephone, we had a typewriter, we had paper, pencils, you name it, and we had this box full of applications, and that was what we were working with. And this lasted for about a week or two, and then we told George, whose responsibility was to hire people, go get us a secretary. And so George put a notice out, people applied, and the first one to apply was Elaine. And so he said to me, I found somebody that looks pretty good. Would you like to interview her? I said, yeah. So Elaine came to see me, and I says, can you take dictation? She says, yes. I says, can you type? She says, yeah. So I gave her a letter, and I liked her, and I said, would you like to start to work? And she said, yes. I said, good. And she proved to be the very best thing we did in that very first moment of the beginning of Cuesta College. She worked for us for 40 years, and she's still coming around to help. So that's the way we were able to get going. So we were in limbo for 23 days, and finally George got a place for us in front of the high school district where the parking structure is now. There were two old Army buildings, and we rented one of those, and that was our first office. And so therefore, we had these various responsibilities that Dr. Eisenbeis had assigned. George to hire the non-certificated people, to look for an architect, to look for money, to get supplies, to get a campus. That was George's responsibility. Berlin was working with the board and with the community. The papers didn't like us. After each board meeting, we met the spring of '64 extra legally. And that means that we were legal, but the district really wasn't taking effect until July 1. But the board would write up our stories. They did our board meetings. The papers didn't like us. The story after each board meeting began, the board took another faltering step last night. And when they mentioned our name, they would put our name, comma, our salary, comma, and go on with the story. This is what we had to deal with when we first started because we were the enemy. We were suspicious. And so we decided that we would not worry because the board had told us that we had a whole year to get going. So we decided to take it easy. And everything was going fine until about the first part of August. We started seeing these flyers from Ellen Hancock offering classes here in our county. I never did like Hancock. And so I called up the dean who I knew and I says, I didn't say heck. I said, what the heck you doing here? Get out of here, we're here. Get your damn flyers out of here. And so he did, and so this meant now that if they were not going to offer classes, people were expecting them. So even though the board had told us to wait a year to get started, we now had to have those classes that Hancock was going to offer. We had 3 weeks notice to do this. So where do you start? Well, luckily, and I think it's appropriate to have my name with this new building because I'm an expert on curriculum. I wrote my dissertation on establishing a program, a curriculum for post-high school education. I had a pretty good idea of what you do. What you do is you determine the needs of the community, such as the needs of the people who are in real estate, fire science, police science, legal work, psychiatric work, you name it, and you determine your curriculum according to meet the needs of those various segments of the community. So this is how you determine your curriculum. So therefore, I determined that we would have 23 classes. Okay, when you have a program, you need course outlines. So I called some of my buddies around, And I said, hey, give me your course outline and make it fast. So the course outlines came in. I gave them to Elaine. I said, Elaine, tear off the front sheet and retype our name, make it sound like we did this. And these were the 23 course outlines that we had. Okay, so much for the course outlines. Now to get the teachers. Well, I used to get 100 letters a day for people applying for jobs. When the people heard that we were going to offer classes here, we had a lot of Cal Poly professors offering to teach at night for us. So that was wonderful. So we had them, then we had high school teachers applying. And then we had independent people also. An example of independent people is Arlene Chandler. Arlene Chandler had been working at Cal Poly, and when she married Ev Chandler, they fired her. Can you imagine firing people because you marry somebody? That's not too smart. So anyway, we hired Arlene Chandler, and there was another fellow that I'd heard who was independent. His name was Frank Avila. And Frank Avila had been the military governor of Palau. And I knew a little bit about the Pacific because after all, the Marines, we did that. And so if Frank Avila had been the military governor of Palau and was acquainted with political science, what a dream to have someone like that. And we hired him, and he became our very first permanent teacher. Arlene Chandler became our second permanent teacher, and thus we got us off to a good start by people like them, the professors from Cal Poly, and other individuals who helped us with our first classes. Okay, so we determined what the curriculum was going to be. After all, as I told you, I had written my dissertation on establishing a curriculum. And so now we had the teachers, we had the course outlines. The next thing we needed books. Where do you get books? Well, I went to the Cal Poly bookstore. And I believe the guy's name was Duke. I said, Duke, could you handle our books for us that we need? He said, I'd be glad to, no problem. So with 2 weeks' notice, he got the books and had them ready to be purchased by the evening students. Okay, so much for the books. We need a library. So I went to the Cal Poly library. I says, would you mind if some of our students might use your library? Evening students usually use them on Saturdays or Sundays. Would you mind if they came here and used your library? He said, we'd be glad to have them. So we had now the bookstore, we had the library, and I knew there was one other thing we needed for evening class, and that is a break. People go to class at night at 7. By 8:15, they're getting restless. And so they need to go get coffee or an ice cream bar or peanuts or candy or something. And I had run across a Marine buddy who had 2 sons, and I figured that they could make some money. I said, hey, would your boys like to have a trailer come out here about 7:20 at night till about 7:45 and sell stuff, and they could keep all the money. So we had refreshments for our evening students through these guys, and so what else do you need? So that's the beginning. We started our evening classes with 463 students. We met in the upper part of the junior high school where the current district office is for our classes. Also at Atascadero High School because many of our students were the psych tech people from the Atascadero State Hospital. So our first classes were here at the junior high school and Atascadero High School. The second semester we expanded to Arroyo Grande and Paso Robles, and we increased from 463 to 696. Those were the numbers of our students the first year when we had been told not to worry about a thing. And so that was the beginning of Cuesta College. And so now you know the story as to why I feel very close to this building, because that was right my interest in the curriculum and how to establish a curriculum. You offer courses that local community needs, and this is what we tried to do at the very beginning. I think I've talked about Stork and what he's done to this community. Yes, that's about it. Anyway, he's contributed greatly, and behind every good man is a better woman. You got to give Jan credit too. Gil and Jan have been here 51 and a half years. Tremendous experience, wonderful leadership, and so we're lucky to have them. And the faculty we had a great faculty. We started with 27 full-time teachers, and we expanded and it kept growing. And so now you have the beginning of Cuesta College, even though at that time it was Slaco. We got the name Cuesta about a year and a half later when the board adopted a name. Well, I'm going to make this short. Is this water? Well, much praise goes to the original teachers. They came here, some of them are here now, and I don't know, I hate to miss some. I know Bob Evans and several others here who are original, who got us off. We had 27 teachers to begin with, and so we started full-time day and evening classes in 1965, September the 12th. And so from that time, we've gone from a very early beginning with meager sources, but a great interest and contributions to having an excellent program. And so the success of Cuesta College can be based on those early years and that early faculty and the conditions they worked at the camp that Dr. George McGinnis got for us from the state of California. Let me tell you about the state of California. They try to chip us. When we first came here, we decided we would settle at Camp San Luis Obispo. At that time, I was under the 6th Army. And McNamara was Secretary of the Army, and he determined that they would give us the camp for $1 a year. That was wonderful, except by December, they had turned it over to the state of California. It went from $1 a year to $28,000. And so we sent some people up to Sacramento. What the heck are you doing to us? We could have gotten this for $1 a year. So they brought it down to $14,000. But that's what we had to pay for 54 acres, which was the original acreage of the original campus where we are now. And so it's just behind us. So therefore, when people come by here and they look and they see these new buildings, that's a story that you can tell them if they ask you, what happened here? Well, what happened here was the development of an outstanding institution because of the contribution and the spirit of that original faculty, 27 of them, who gave it their all. And we are very lucky to have gotten off to a great start because of the faculty. If you don't have a faculty, you have nothing. There's a very famous university president who said all you need for education is the two ends of the log, a student at one end and the teacher at the other. And this is what we have here. We have outstanding teachers and have had them for a long time. And you know who you are, even though they're one of you that could have had a little bit of improvement. You know, like the chemistry teacher, Azar, and others like that. But wonderful experience, and I'm so lucky and fortunate to have been involved. And without your support, and continue to give us your support. You know, when you approved those last bonds for $22 million, was it 122, wasn't it? You gave us some money to pay for this building. This building cost $12.4 million. And the only thing wrong with it is that the letters are smaller than Stork. Well, I would like to say that Stork went through the various positions and disregarded the Peter Principle. And as you know, the Peter Principle says that you go from one position to the other because of your incompetence. And so therefore, I'm about to ruin everything I've said so far. So I want to thank you for being here, for the opportunity to have served you. It was a pleasure. I was here 25 years. And it's the greatest experience of my life. Thanks to you. Thanks for being here. And just continue to support Cuesta College. And when the next bond election comes, support it, vote for it. It'll pay for buildings like the one we have here, regardless of the size of the letters. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Martinez. I do want to set the record straight. I have not measured the letters on the gym versus letters here, but I can assure you that the letters on this building cost significantly more. So I'm going to ask, are there any of our original faculty here with us today? Would you please stand and be recognized?
Come on, Evan.
It is a privilege and pleasure to recognize the outstanding service of Dr. Frank Martinez. On behalf of the students of Cuesta College, with the official naming of the Dr. Frank R. Martinez Building, congratulations on an honor well deserved. Once again for being here today, and we hope that you will join us in celebration with some dessert right around the corner. Thank you.